Cowboys Nation, buckle up, because what we are about to get into today is the kind of off-season conversation that actually keeps you up at night. We are talking about a trade proposal that could bring a Super Bowl champion with championship DNA straight into that Dallas secondary. We are talking about a defensive tackle situation that is about to force Cherry Jones into one of the hardest decisions he has made in years. And we are talking about 2 first-round picks sitting in this front office like loaded weapons waiting to go off. But before we get into all of it, one fan to another, hit that subscribe button and drop your take in the comments. This is a group conversation, and your voice matters too much to stay quiet. You ready? All right, let's go. Let me start with the defensive backfield, because Christian Parker has made it crystal clear what kind of defense he wants to build. And once you understand his philosophy, the Trent McDuffie conversation stops sounding wild and starts sounding like exactly the right call. Parker puts a massive emphasis on the nickel corner, not just a role player, not a guy you rotate in on third down. The nickel corner in his scheme is one of the most important positions on the entire defense. And when you think about the game today, that makes complete sense. You were seeing 3 wide receiver sets on almost every snap. You were seeing tight ends who run like wide receivers and create mismatches all over the field. To combat that, you need a corner who can do everything. Cover the number 1 receiver, shadow an athletic tight end, come downhill and be a factor in the run game. That is not a luxury piece. That is a necessity. Now look at what the Cowboys currently have. Deron Bland is in the mix, and he has shown flashes. But if you are building a real defense, flashes are not enough. You need answers. And the proposal that has been making the rounds is straight up bold. Trade the 20th pick to Kansas City for Trent McDuffie. Let that sit for a second, because McDuffie is not just a good corner. He is a dog, and we talk about wanting dogs in Dallas all the time. Get some dogs. That is a dog right there. That is a dude who goes out every single Sunday and competes. He brings a playoff pedigree. He brings a Super Bowl pedigree. He brings championship culture into a locker room that desperately needs more of that energy. And for a coordinator like Parker, who wants to trust the guys in the secondary, McDuffie is exactly the kind of player you build your coverage around. You pair him with Bland, you give yourself real versatility, and suddenly that nickel position that Parker values so heavily has legitimate answers at multiple spots. You can even look at a guy like Jordan Lewis and ask, does his role shift? Do you move some pieces around? The point is, you now have options instead of question marks. But here's where I want to pump the brakes just a little. This is a rich defensive back class in the draft, and there is a real danger of getting too cute. You do not want to put so much makeup on this thing that it starts looking like a clown. Use what you have. Trust the evaluation process. Do not go so crazy with trades that you lose track of the foundation. McDuffie makes sense because the fit is clean and the need is real, that you have to weigh that against what you are giving up, because a 20th pick in a strong draft class is real currency.
Now let us talk about the interior, because this one is genuinely fascinating and a little uncomfortable. The Cowboys brought in Kenny Clark, and on paper, having him alongside Quinton Williams and Osa Odigizua looks like the most dominant interior in the league, and it could be exactly that. If you keep all 3 and build the edge rushing around them, you can make a serious argument that Dallas has the best defensive tackle rotation in football. That is not hype. That is a real conversation. But here is the problem. You have 3 defensive tackles all making north of $20 million. Quinton Williams is untouchable. He is the best of the 3, and you are not moving him. Osa's contract is so new and the dead money situation is so messy that trading him creates more problems than it solves. That leaves Kenny Clark as the one contract that actually has some flexibility. At $21.5 million, it is the most tradable of the 3, the most workable, the one where you can have a real conversation with another team without the math blowing up in your face. And the argument for moving him is not that he is a bad player. The argument is that the Cowboys have so many holes that carrying 3 $20 million defensive tackles might be a luxury this roster cannot afford right now, when you still need linebacker depth, secondary help, and edge rushing support. To be honest with you, though, I lean toward keeping all 3 if you can make it work, because average defenses are built in the secondary, elite defenses are won in the trenches, And if that interior is as good as it looks on paper, every edge rusher you bring in becomes more dangerous. Every quarterback holdup becomes a sack. The whole defense feeds off it. So, before you trade Kenny Clark to create cap flexibility, you better be absolutely sure what you are getting in return justifies losing that kind of presence up front. Now let us zoom out, because the biggest conversation hanging over all of this is what Dallas does with those 2 first-round picks, 12 and 20. And everybody has a different plan. Trade up, trade back, package them, use both, stack second and third rounders. The ideas are endless right now, and honestly, that is a good problem to have. But it is still a problem, because this roster has so many needs that you can convince yourself of almost anything depending on which hole you are staring at that day. Here's my honest take. The Cowboys historically draft well when they are picking in that top 25 range. That is just the truth. And there are only about 14 or 15 players in this class with legitimate first-round grades. So the idea of trading back to collect second and third-round picks sounds smart until you remember how many times Dallas has been burned in the second round. We keep waiting on guys to develop, and they do not develop. We drafted guys with first-round talent in the second round and got disappointment from jump. That history matters. So, before you get clever and start manufacturing picks in rounds where this franchise has a troubled track record, think hard about just staying put and taking the best player available at 12 and 20. And here's the bigger picture that cannot be ignored. The NFC is not standing still. Philadelphia has been the dominant franchise in this division for 5 years straight, and that is just the reality. The Giants are going to be better next year with the John Harbaugh they just brought in. Washington is dangerous and hungry after tasting the NFC Championship. The schedule for next year is going to be brutal. There is no ease into it. This is not a division where you can rebuild slowly and hope nobody notices. You have to be ready. And that is why I said it before, and I will say it again. This might be the most important offseason for the Dallas Cowboys in the last 20 years. The coaches they hired, the players already on the roster, the picks they have, the cap room available, all of it converges right now. You don't get moments like this every year, and the worst thing you can do is let this window close because you were too cautious, too conservative, or too afraid to make a real move. So, tell me in the comments, do you make the McDuffie trade and build the secondary around proven championship talent? Do you hold Kenny Clark and bet on that interior being the best in football? Or do you move him and use the flexibility to attack other positions? And those 2 first-round picks, do you stay put and draft your guys, or do you start getting creative? Because this front office has assets right now. The question is whether they have the conviction of using them right. Drop your take. This conversation belongs to all of us.